What did the neighborhood look like in the 1940s?
It was very sparsely built. We could see just about halfway across the beach, if not further. And it was lots of fields, which we utilized during the years as we grew up, having races and playing baseball and that kind of thing. So there weren't a lot of people here back in those days.
I will say a number of the cottages on the waterfront were there and are here. There have been some additions.
Oh, yeah.
But the waterfront was fairly well developed, but back, very little, very limited.
What was it like in the back?
Fields and a few houses. I mean, I don't exactly know when our house was built, but it was built around late 20s, early 30s. And we were actually the third owner in 1944. But, you know, it was the corner house on Maple Avenue, and then there was our house, which is down about 6 lots down, and believe it or not, it was crazy. There was 2 houses right next to each other, and the space is about yay, and they were built by the same builder, Roche. And across the street, there was 2 other houses besides the corner house. One was a family called the Tysons, and he actually was from East Hartford, and he built that house himself. And then down farther was what's called the Jarvis Road, what I think is the Jarvis Farm. And that was it for the whole street. Okay, so there was corner house, our 2 houses, corner house, and 2 more houses. And that was it, all the way to the woods.
So can you say more about the fields? Like what sort of fields were they? Were they farm? Were they?
No more farm, just grass, hay.
Grass, just empty lots waiting to be sold.
Yeah.
And along since you mentioned the waterfront, I just might mention along the waterfront, there are probably only 4 houses left that have not been changed. This being one that we've never changed this house.
Oh, yeah.
But all the other houses have had additions put on them, not all of them, but except for three or 4 more.
Yeah.
But if you go along the waterfront here, you find that the houses looked very different when we were growing up than they do now.
And of course, you also have to remember, it was a summer beach community. So most of the homes were strictly cottages. No heat, no foundations, no anything. Now, the house across the street, the Coast Lodge house, they have a foundation, and that was built as a year-round house. But now here's this house. It was a summer cottage.
Yeah.
What changes would you say have been most drastic from the Knollwood in the 1940s to now?
The development of the beach, the building of more cottages, and then after a while, the cottages started to be turned into year-round homes, and now it's not really a beach community anymore as such. It's a retirement community, and many of our mutual friends that we grew up with have actually come back here and retired. So we have, that's kind of unique because there are a number of them, not just 1 or 2.
Speaking more broadly, what in Old Saybrook do you think has really changed?
Well, that's interesting to my point. Saybrook has certainly changed, but it hasn't changed that much. I mean, Main Street was pretty much like it is. The big development was the shopping center. That was in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
That changed the flavor a little bit.
And Route 1 really has changed.
And Route 1 has
drastically.
changed. It's gotten much more. I mean, there was
Commercial,
almost nothing there before.
Pizza place and just a few things, but that whole Route 1
And you know, there's
developed.
no question it's gotten busier, but not as much as you might think, because I remember back in 70, this town was about 7,500. Now they claim now it's only around 11 or 12,000. That's year-round residents.
No, I think it's below 10 now.
It probably is
It's
below
below
10,
10.
because the schools are shrinking as opposed to
Yeah, they're-
back a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it hasn't grown that much, but certainly in the summertime, what, 25,000?
25,000 in the summer. So the traffic increases and you know, the shopping is more crowded and all of that. But basically, I think we have 10,000 population approximately.
When you say the shopping center, are you referring to the one that now has sort of Walmart in it?
Yeah, Walmart and Stop and Shop, that was built
Yeah.
originally. Where the Walmart is used to be a Caldor. I don't know if you remember that name, but
No, you
Caldor
would
was
never remember
was
that, yeah.
one of the first big box stores.
Like a
it was,
Walmart or a Kmart.
And
or,
Caldor was based out of Connecticut. I think they were out of Rocky Hill or something.
yeah,
weren't
they were.
But they were big for a number of years and then went by the wayside.
In terms of getting back to sort of the 40s and 50s, in terms of how everything was developed, you said that there were fields. Were the individual roads in
Yeah,
place at that time?
All the roads are here.
Yep.
Because the Coast Lodge, Simpson and Coast Lodge were the developers. They put the roads in, they built the clubhouse, and they built the tennis courts, I guess. And down where, quote, the lake was, they had rose gardens, believe it or not, down there. And the lake really was nothing.
Yeah. Not what you'd want to call a lake for
No,
sure.
No,
No.
mud puddle.
There actually was a sort of an area that was designated to be a lake or a pond, or
Yeah, that area was designated to be. You'll see on, you go back
Originally,
farther about, you
yeah.
see a lake, but
You can see it on the map on
it
that
never,
map that
never happened.
we have.
Because it was the low spot in the whole beach, you know.
were the roads paved, or
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Hmm.
By then they were.
yeah.
so Maple Ave was all paved as well as the other roads, but
Yes.
Yeah.
but everything else.
Even down back in the woods, all paved.
Oh, okay.
The whole of Knollwood was paved and finished. Way back then, we had our own water. We had a water tower back in the woods, and we were all supplied water from that water tower. What's the water company? Connecticut Water? No, is it? Whatever. And the water company now came in probably what, 70s?
Yeah.
Probably around 70s. Switched over, and now we got quote city water, but you know, before it was our own water.
So all the roads were paved, but there were sort of very few houses. So it's
Yeah.
just sort of fields with paved roads in the.
Yes, basically that's what it was, with houses scattered here and there.
At what point did you notice that the community that you had sort of grown up with was changing or sort of had changed?
I think in the 60s.
Yeah, I would say mid 60s.
Mid 60s to
on,
late 60s and
yeah.
early 70s.
Yeah,
A lot of
development.
development. I mean, even the lot next door here on the waterfront was
Yeah,
vacant
Yeah.
until Angie came along and built a house on
And
it,
that
and
was
that
probably
was
what,
in the
70s?
70s.
Yeah.
That was in, so that lot was vacant until the 70s.
I knew a fellow from West Hartford came down, and he built all those houses across from the clubhouse, and that was late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
So he built half a dozen houses down here, threw them all up at once, and you know.
Yeah.
If you were trying to explain the history of Knollwood to someone who totally has no idea, is there anything else that you think you'd want to mention to them about the beach community or sort of how it's developed?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, that is a tough question.
Well,
and it's-
I mean, it certainly has changed. Like we say, it was a real beach community, much more limited, but very active. I mean, I think there's less action now as far as
oh,
togetherness than there was then. I mean, we had,
much
for the
less.
kids, we had, and there were not that many kids, but I mean, we always had land races and things like
Yep.
that. When was that? Around July 4th?
The 4th of July and Labor Day.
And then Labor Day,
swimming
we had swim
races.
races.
Yeah.
And you know, and that was a big deal. Everybody turned out, and they gave prizes. We all got ribbons, and you know, it was terrific. None
then-
of that goes on now. You know.
And then the waterfront really interests me
Oh yeah.
because
yeah.
years ago,
Yeah, yeah.
all of the houses along the waterfront were occupied all summer long, and it was a party strip.
absolutely.
It was a
time.
party strip, and
Drinking,
and
carrying on,
playing cards,
I mean,
playing piano,
you to
singing.
walk along, and man, the singing and carrying on.
Oh, absolutely. And if you were to drive by here at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, there would be lights on in every house on the waterfront, and there would be a party going on. This would be on the weekend mostly. Now you can go by here at 9 o'clock at night, and my house is the only one with a light on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Deadsville, it really
Yes.
is. It's amazing
How that part has changed, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody really had a good time. Though that was a great era, and it was a lot of fun, and we still get together and have fun, those of us that are younger and back here. But when I was growing up here and my parents were here, it was
I mean,
really
it was party
wonderful.
time. That's the,
yes.
I probably shouldn't mention the name, but at the corner of, I just remember who they.
Yeah.
They had a screened-in porch. Now it's all enclosed, but I mean, carrying on and the language and flying. So it was really something.
And maybe we shouldn't tell them that everybody was Irish on the whole waterfront.
Well, the whole beach.
The whole beach was.
I mean,
pretty
when
much.
we go back and we can say Chases, the Roaches,
Coils.
the Coils,
Coils, that
Coils,
was
the
my name.
Roaches, the Lonigans,
Lonigans.
the Duns, the Keenans, the Kenny,
McDonough's, the Flaherty's,
all Roman Catholic. I mean, it was basically-
everybody, and they knew how to party.
I mean, on the corner of Jarvis again, on this end, that was Mayor Mortenson's home, and he was mayor of Hartford back then. And you ever hear about the Hartford Circus Fire? Okay, that was 44, was it? No, later than that. Anyways, the
yeah.
Hartford Circus Fire,
Yeah.
he was mayor at the time, and he was very active in the fire. They really did a lot, and they turned the armory up there into a morgue, and he was down there every day, and his wife was there. Big deal. But I remember one time, he was politically connected around. I remember one time, of course, there was nothing but lots between us and him. In comes a helicopter from somewhere and lands down there, So.
Yeah. He was the mayor of Hartford.
You could do that then,
Yeah.
I remember hearing about the castle and how that was sort of a hub of
Partying also.
There you go. Go ahead. You're on.
It was where everybody would go on a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday night. And then when we were growing up here, we actually had formal.
When we were like 16,
gowns.
I mean, young, right?
We had dances over there. And I do have a lot of movies. My mother was a big movie buff. She took movies of everything. So we have all the water skiing out in front, and we have getting ready to go to the dances, and everybody all in their gowns and their suits and everything. And we would go over there once or twice a summer and have dances.
But that was for the kids, but tuxedo, big formal gowns for the girls. At 16 years old, Now there was no drinking or carrying on, but there was that. But the
regulars,
adults, when they were over there, that was big party time.
big party time over there.
Yeah, it was nice. It was great inside, beautiful bar, nice, decent restaurant. It was okay back
Yeah.
then.
Did people stay at the hotel or?
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then later on, they built a deck out on the front of it, and
Up on the
and they'd
roof.
always have music on the weekends, and we thought it was wonderful because we could sit right here on the porch and listen to the music over at the castle and decide whether you wanted to go over there and dance or not.
They had a pool, right where the protrusion from the room is going out. They had a pool. They put a pool in there in the early '60s, I guess it was.
Around the time the Terramar, I
yeah,
think,
maybe
was
they were in competition.
over.
But anyway, they put a pool,
Yeah.
and I even had a friend of mine from Harvard. He came down. He was a lifeguard over there. So that was. But now that pool's gone. They just filled it in, and
Yeah.
But Terramar was a hot spot.
wow.
terror horror. I mean, that was the stories, but it's true. You know, Frank Sinatra and his gang used to come in there all the time, and all these people used to come in. And I even worked there. I worked there a couple of years. So.
And that was in the 70s, late 60s and early 70s.
60s, because I was in school. I was in college.
Well, Fenwood, they have parties on the beach.
Yeah.
On the little beach that they have down there, on the upper part of it, they put picnic tables.
You're familiar with the Fenwood situation? You know, we have an association here.
Yeah.
Everybody belongs to, you have to.
Yeah.
You pay taxes. Okay. And somehow when that was organized, and we even knew the fellow who organized it, remember, because he built it.
Yeah.
But that was, that's interesting. In the 50s, that was nothing but flat land too.
Oh, wow.
Nothing but for that. And then a guy, a dentist, I believe, out of Bristol, wasn't he out of Bristol? Brandon?
I think it was,
Brandon?
Brannon.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He came down and he bought the whole land, and he developed Fenwood as Simpson and Coast developed Knollwood. And he had 2 young sons, and we kind of hung around with him a little bit. But in the organization of that beach, they have 3 groups over there. And you can be a beach member, or another group, you're not a beach member, and another group that's, I don't know what they are. So it's very divisive. It's, you know, the beach group is the ones who throw the parties, and they can come down and they can use the pier. If you don't have that membership, you can't go down and use the beach.
Can't swim there.
Screwy, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.